Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday, and welcome to day 2 of Super Wild Card Weekend in the hashtag Super Wild Card Weekend. Last night we got a pair of games. Saturday, obviously the Bengals and the Bills. Unfortunately, advanced. I guess unfortunately, depending on where you're coming from. If you know me, you know I'm coming from a place of much sorrow and just misery right now. But it is what it is. Congratulations to the Bengals getting their first playoff win in 31 years. And of course, congratulations to the Bills, who look like a team that might be rounding into form at the right time by virtue of how much they dominated the Patriots last night. So good morning, fellas. How are we doing today? Anyone super disappointed about the outcomes of last night's games?
Not really.
I mean, I
Mostly
would say disappointed. Sorry, Braden.
Oh, sorry. No, I just said just because good quarterback play. I think seeing the young quarterbacks play as good as they did for the most part just goes to show league's in pretty good hands, especially on the AFC side. So going to be hotly contested for years to come. So can't wait to see how much these younger quarterbacks can accomplish as they move on here.
I think it's.
I would say just disappointed.
Go ahead, Kyle.
How about this? Braden, Ricky, Kyle. Go ahead.
I think as Kyle and Braden were talking, the Bills got another touchdown, but I think there was a whistle in the background, so I couldn't figure that out.
Hey, that didn't. I don't think the whistle impacted any sort of play. That was just a scapegoat for the Raiders. But anyways, go ahead, Kyle.
I mean, I would say disappointed that I didn't get my turn to talk first. No, I think the disappointment is just the Patriots defense. I think we expected a lot more from them not to allow, 7 straight touchdowns? That's insane for even the worst defense in the league. Like, you'd be hard pressed to have that type of futility. And what an amazing game by Josh Allen just to command the offense. And I mean, the run game and the offensive line really dominated. But yeah, that to me is the disappointment, just because it made it kind of an unwatchable football game at the end, just because the competitive aspect was so gone because it was such a blowout.
Josh Allen's 98.5 QBR last night was the highest in any single postseason game in NFL history, besting Tom Brady's 98 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if anyone remembers that game, and I'm sure Ricky does, I think Tom Brady had 2 incompletions and absolutely shredded the Jacksonville defense that day. So yeah, very impressive. Josh Allen, 5 total touchdowns. I mean, it was. I mean, it was almost a mirror image of what we saw a couple weeks ago when he was, making great throw after great throw after great throw, and he was also doing it with his legs. Very, very great instinctually. Very great in terms of making the right decision quickly, and that's something that you can't necessarily teach. You just have to have that instinct, and I think we saw that from Josh Allen yesterday. And look, that bodes well for a Bills long playoff run if you think about it. I mean, what they do well is play defense and run the ball, and move the ball. I'm not going to even say run the ball, because obviously Josh Allen can throw it. They move the ball well, both running and throwing. So How do you stop that? How do you stop that for a team like, say, which, again, I think we can all anticipate that next week it's going to be the Chiefs and the, Chiefs and the Bills, assuming Pittsburgh pull off the improbable upset today. And we'll get to that. Maybe one of you guys are bold enough to make that choice. But how theoretically, I guess, how do the Chiefs or any team stop this Bills offense? Because, well, guess what? It's not that easy. And then you also have to contend with their number 1 defense. And again, same rotation, so we don't talk over each other. Go ahead, you, Braden.
Yeah, I kind of think the biggest thing maybe is just pressuring him. I think that's kind of where you've seen him kind of, throw off his back foot a little bit more, kind of put balls into harm's way. So I think with some of that kind of obviously puts you in a little bit tougher spot when he wants to take off and run, especially with the bigger body that he has. But I think pressuring him really from just, I think the interior, I think that's kind of where I would start. But I would not be afraid to just kind of bring extra pressure from linebackers or defensive backs. And talking about Kansas City, we know Steve Spagnuolo never afraid to do that with the DBs. So I think that's where I'd start. But I think you just kind of have to play zone coverage as best you can on the back end. I know it's kind of a tough thing going up against these AFC QBs, what coverage to choose. But I think I would go with zone as much as I could against Allen and try to kind of jump routes as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think it's just finding, like Braden said, a good front seven, because I think last night the Patriots front seven kind of got exposed for what it is or how slow and old it is. Because you look at the secondary for the Patriots last night, Jalen Mills had COVID, didn't play. Sean Wade, who was supposed to be for depth, had COVID, he didn't play. So Miles Bryant, second quarter. Miles Bryant got torched by Isaiah McKenzie 3 weeks ago. So it should have been no surprise that Josh Allen carved up a secondary that is 2011-esque. If Ian probably remember that 2011 secondary, awful. I think though for the Bills, establishing Devin Singletary the last few weeks has been huge, because they couldn't really play. They finally realized, hey, we're a cold weather team. We can play like one. And remember, Josh Allen, those cold weather criticisms were warranted. He threw 3 picks in the snow a few weeks ago against the Falcons. So to kind of, I think he had his own personal statement game. And I think 2 of the last 3 weeks he's done that. If they do play the Chiefs, I just don't know if they can beat Kansas City second time. I know Josh Allen could do it, but this is a different. If the Chiefs do advance, it's a different pass rush than when they played him earlier in the year. But still, props to him and props to Brian Dable, is probably going to be a head coach because of the job he's doing with Josh Allen this year.
Although we did say that last coaching cycle where we thought he was going to be a head coach, it didn't happen. So I've given up trying to predict who's going to be NFL head coaches or not. Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I mean, that's like Braden, Ricky said, like key to the front seven. Don't let the Bills' offensive line just completely dominate the game, and let them kind of pick and choose whatever they want to do, whether it's run or pass protect. If they could just be as dominant like that, it's going to be really tough for any defense to stop them, any secondary to hold up for that long. So yeah, for a lot of time, football comes down to that front four pressure and the battles in the trenches. And that's no different when trying to face the Bills.
Moving from one starving, downtrodden franchise to another, like I said, the Bengals won their first playoff game since I was 4 years old, and I'm guessing some of you weren't even alive, considering I'm older than most. So, yeah, it's been a long time coming for the Bengals. Obviously, they've had moments where they've been in the playoffs. There's 5 or 6 years in a row that they went one and done. So they've tasted playoff games. They just haven't tasted playoff success. And yesterday they finally got it. So keeping to the theme of quarterbacks, because again, I mean, the quarterback's the most important player on the field in any given game. How impressed were you guys with Joe Burrow, who all of a sudden, especially over the last month, almost calendar month or so, or whatever, has looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I mean, he's throwing the ball great, making great decisions. How impressed were you with him in the Bengals' victory over the Raiders?
Yeah, I think the thing that stands out is just like how unafraid he is really to try anything and really just kind of keep going after the same matchups that he's kind of been going after earlier on in the game. I think that's sometimes what younger quarterbacks, whether it's decision from coaching or anything, they kind of try to hit all areas of the field. And I think Burrow just does a good job of diagnosing where the pressure's coming from, realizing what all the secondary is going to be doing in coverage. So I think just his understanding of just what everyone's supposed to be doing at the right time, I think that's what stands out. And yesterday, I think just seeing how he kind of navigates the pocket and really how quickly he gets the ball out, I think that showed off some kind of plays from him that doesn't get talked about enough, I think, from his style of play. So just his quick decision making, I think that's most of all what stood out to me.
I think if you told anybody that Joe Mixon only ran it 17 times for 48 yards, you would think the Bengals would have lost yesterday. So I got to give Cincinnati's offensive line a lot of credit. People talked about during the week, Joe Burrow was sacked 51 times in the regular season, only 2 yesterday. And considering that in his playoff debut, he didn't really punt the ball in the first half. It was really just the only scoring job they didn't have was when they took a knee going to the locker room. That's a very impressive playoff debut. Raiders kind of got back in it late, but you give Cincinnati's defense credit for getting the stop. And now you take a Bengals team that during the season didn't handle expectations well sometimes. They would lose those games they were expected to win. Now they're going to be the underdog in every team they play. And that's kind of a scary thought to give another chip on the shoulder to Burrow and company. So they're very scary in the AFC.
Like a few things about Burrow. And I mean, I think the Raiders defense came out just atrocious. Like they're leaving Jamar Chase one-on-one constantly. I thought the defensive adjustments they made at the second half really worked well, but also Burrow navigated well. Like clearly their offense wasn't as efficient in the second half, but he still didn't turn the ball over. And when Chase was double covered or blanket covered, went more to Uzoma, or we started to see Tyler Boyd. We started to see a lot more T. Higgins targets as the game went on. So I thought Burrow did well, whatever the defense is giving you, right? If they're going to give Chase one-on-one, he's going to go to it every play. Like he trusts that connection so much. It's one of those where you really force the other teams to either have an elite corner on him or blanket cover. I mean, they had a few different corners try him one-on-one. I think Trufant probably was about the best they could do one-on-one, but even that still, you love that matchup every time it's one-on-one. So I think Burrow adjusted well to the Raiders' adjustments, but I think the offense at whole could have been more efficient. If anything, I thought they should have kept passing more. Like I know it was okay, you're leading and you want to, in theory, trust the defense run game, but the Raiders defense is set up to be really good against the run, not good against the pass at all. So if anything, especially the way they were coming out slinging, like the very first play of the game, 1st and 10 on your opening drive, it's a throw right away. I like that aggressiveness from the Zach Taylor play call, and I felt that he as a coach kind of went away from that. I'm shocked Burrow only had 34 attempts. The way they were passing so much in the first half, you told me that he ends the game with only 34 attempts? I thought at certain points they should have just relied on him more. Because like Braden was saying, he's not scared. It doesn't look like the moment's too big for him. So, I think if they had relied on his arm more and just not have been running as much, especially on early downs in that second half, I think they could have put the game away further and not just won by one possession.
Well, they're going to have to obviously go up against a much tougher team in Tennessee, assuming again, that's who they're going up against. Assuming again, like Pittsburgh's not going to pull off some miraculous upset. And again, that would be, I don't think any of us are expecting that. So, but to your point, maybe you learn from that. Maybe you say, okay, maybe we do throw more. Maybe we do just trust Burrow's arm, because obviously, I think Rodney Harrison said it at halftime before the second half. The Raiders they looked overwhelmed. They didn't look like they were ready for that situation. And on the flip side, Joe Burrow, Joe Cool, type of thing, just sitting on the sidelines or on the field, just doing what he does. So I'll be interested to see if they do adjust that going up against Tennessee, where, obviously I think we all believe as the 1 seed that Tennessee is obviously a far tougher opponent than the Raiders, but there will be some adjustments that need to be made for them. But if they're going to win any more playoff games, it's going to be on the arm of Joe Burrow and the hands of Jamar Chase. So, all right. So that was yesterday. We're talking about the present. That's today. And we get kicked off today with, that's right, the defending Super Bowl champions taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. And obviously these two teams have a playoff history. The Buccaneers back in their first Super Bowl run took down the Eagles en route to that victory, but that was a very long time ago. And of course, the Buccaneers quarterback, the guy who should have been the first team All-Pro and presumptuously the MVP, but we're not going to go there today. He obviously has some history with the Eagles, having twice played them in the Super Bowl, going 1-1 most recently, losing to the Eagles in 2017. So, look, the Buccaneers are a team that's struggled with health the entire season. They're not going to be with Leonard Fournette today. Giovanni Bernard has been activated. There are other players. Obviously, Chris Godwin's already, is done for the season. There's no more Antonio Brown. Cyril Grayson, the star of the Jets comeback win, is not going to be playing today. So this team has been and will continue to be shorthanded. But my initial impression of this game is, look, the Bucs are just a better team, and you're going to be hard pressed to find anyone who's going to bet against Tom Brady, who, in recent weeks, again, has looked very much like the best quarterback in the league on the field. So, guys, what do you think? First off, with your first impressions of this game, is this a dangerous game for the Buccaneers, or do you think this is going to be a just chalk it up? This is why we probably don't have 7 seeds in the playoff type game.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a chalk it up game. I guess if there's anything dangerous to the Bucks, I feel like Eagles could have a lot of long drives. So maybe dangerous to Tom Brady's stats, maybe not being as high as it could. But yeah, I just think this is one of those games where the style of play that Philly kind of has, it's kind of one that can be snuffed out pretty quickly by a veteran team like Tampa Bay. I think you just kind of look at Jalen Hurts using his legs more than his arms sometimes. I just don't think death by 1,000 cuts is going to get you much against a team that can kind of hit on any big play whenever they want. So I do think it is kind of a chalk it up game today, but the heavy rain that is in the forecast, that's kind of interesting to me, but still, I don't think it'll be much of a difference.
Sounds like the rain will go away before kickoff, though, and I think that's a relief for Tampa Bay because you got, again, styles make fights. You got the number one rush offense, number one rush defense. Normally the rush defense, I think, holds up in that formula. And you go back to week 6 when Tampa Bay, I know the score is 28-22. They essentially crushed the Eagles. Philly didn't score till late in the second half. Tampa Bay committed 120 yards worth of penalties. And it comes down to really Jalen Hurts. Can Jalen Hurts really win this game with his arm? Because he's going to have to. And outside of Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, there's really nothing that fears a Tampa secondary that's not that good. So they should be okay there. And to me, I'm looking for the Bucs offense. See if people can step up to it. Let's see if Scotty Miller, who had a cameo a couple weeks ago, makes a play. Maybe Rashad Perriman makes a play. Maybe Tyler Johnson makes some plays because they're going to need those guys if they play Dallas or if they play Green Bay down the road, or they're going to need those players to step up. So I've kind of looked at the last few weeks for Tampa's auditions anyway. So maybe that continues today. I just don't see how Jalen Hurts in his first playoff game is going to face the defending champions and win.
In a sense, it's a bad matchup for the Eagles, right? Like you referenced it, Ricky, like strength on strength, right? Like the Eagles, like this team runs through the run game, pun intended, for sure. And I mean, that's what Tampa's so good at stopping. So yeah, it's can Jalen Hurts get this done? And I think back to last year's wild card game. Taylor Heineke played pretty well. And I mean, they still couldn't get that win. Like, can we expect Hurts to play as well as Heineke did last year? Maybe, but he almost has to go beyond that to get a win against the Buccaneers, I think.
Yeah, you're talking about obviously Jalen Hurts making his first playoff start, and you can see up here on the graphic, Tom Brady isn't compared to players when it comes to his wins and the playoff starts. He's compared to franchises, of which he's, I think he trails by what the record. Patriots technically right now still have the record for most playoff wins with 37. Tom Brady's with 34. So, it's again.
Well, it's funny because 30 of those Patriots playoff wins are Tom Brady anyway, right? So is he not even first anyway? But just I don't know if you're being serious, Ian, but I even if this game is a complete blowout, I still don't think it's an argument to get rid of the 7th team. I think back to, it didn't happen this year, but I think back to last season, weren't there 2 10-win teams that missed the playoffs, even with the 7 conference teams. So in situations like that, I'd
say this is not the year technically to criticize the 7th game. I kind of said it a little tongue in cheek because I do think the Buccaneers are going to kind of handle this game pretty heavily. I'm not going to make a judgment about the 7th team yet because I think we've been fortunate certainly this year, but there to anticipate years. I mean, they're going to be lean years in the future where you're going to be like, all right, this matchup feels like a 1-8 in the NBA type of thing. But
we've had that before the 7th seed, right? Like we've had times where a division team is just so awful as a 4 seed that like we see the 5 seed being a clear favorite, right? So that's not so. The 6 to 7 isn't really changing that. It's more like how the divisions are set up when you get down to,
it all depends. It all depends on, again, whatever season, how the season's played out or whatever. There are seasons where getting to 11, 12 wins is impressive, whereas this year it was about 13, 12 wins. That was kind of the elite teams where it's like it all depends on how the seasons play out for each. But there are going to be years in the future where it's like, all right, these matchups aren't great. Like I said, this one in particular, I was more or less just saying I think the Bucs are going to handle this team quite well. And, as you can see up on the screen, I mean, you're talking about one guy with no playoff no playoff experience and the other guy with all the playoff experience. So you can't get much wider than that. And I'm pretty sure this is going to set a record for widest age gap between two starting quarterbacks in a postseason game, of which Tom Brady owns the record with all the regular season marks. Obviously, he seems to set that every week, and it's happened a few times. But yeah, we'll see the experience play out, and this will be another good opportunity for the Bucs to kind of, to your point, Kyle, audition. I guess the players that they're going to obviously need against some of these better teams. So instead of let's do this, instead of picking at the very end, let's pick our, we're going to talk about each of these games individually. So we're going to end up picking them right now because it makes sense to do so. Again, I think we all are going to this is going to be a pretty clean sweep between all four of us, but I am going to start. I think the Buccaneers are, again, probably going to win. I think the spread's 8.5 points right now. I think they're going to cover that. And I'm thinking something like 31-17. The Bucs advance to the divisional round.
Yeah, I'll go the Bucs as well. I think they'll be able to hold Philly under 14 points or at 14 points at the most. Probably going to be interesting to see how much turnovers there is in this game. So that could be maybe a pretty high number compared to what the Eagles get in points. But yeah, I think it's pretty simple for me. It's the Bucs.
The spread went down to 7.5. So I guess I don't know if people just took the weather or something like that, because the spread was 9, I think, a few days ago. I'm still taking Tampa Bay. To me, I just don't think Jalen Hurts throwing the ball is going to be enough to get by Tampa Bay, as questionable as their secondary is. I have it like 27-17. I think Philly maybe gets a garbage time touchdown late to make it look close, but I just think that Tampa front seven is going to be too much.
Yeah, I was kind of using my goal line grades. I did some quickly for these playoff games with the implied totals to try and figure out what my game predictions would be. I ended up with Tampa Bay 30, Philadelphia 20. Kind of probably that, like where it's probably going to be 30 to 13 late in the game, or 13-14 late or 30 to 14 late, and then like the Eagles get a garbage time one. That kind of makes sense to me, Ricky.
All right, next, let's go back to the mid-90s, fellas. Again, maybe some of you weren't even born yet. I can't remember. I can't keep up with this stuff anymore. But best case scenario, you were very, very young, as was I. We used to see this matchup quite a bit in the NFC. This was obviously used to be essentially the Super Bowl. Whoever won this game, not quite the cachet as it once had, but you have two teams that obviously deserve to be here. I think San Francisco, strong defensively, good quarterback play. I think, Dallas, at times you get very elite quarterback play, but you also get pretty good quarterback. It depends on what Dak Prescott you get. Same with Jimmy Garoppolo. Is he going to do enough to help the 49ers win? The 49ers obviously have a really good defense overall. The Cowboys have an all-pro, and I say that very loosely, cornerback in Trayvon Diggs. I'm very fascinated by this matchup because I don't think, in the grand scheme of things, I think much of these teams in terms of threatening for a Super Bowl, but in terms of this game in a vacuum, I think this is going to be fascinating. And to be honest, I'm going back and forth as to who. I mean, I already know who I'm going to pick because I've already put out my pick, so I can't feign like I feign ignorance here and pretend like I haven't done it. No, I know who I'm going to pick here, but it took a while to get to that conclusion because I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, San Francisco's played some really good football to get here. They had to win to get in, which again, you can either value that or not value that. I'm not too sure where you guys land on it, but I like this matchup for San Francisco. I think they can expose the Cowboys defense, and I think they can do enough on offense with pretty good quarterback play from Jimmy Garoppolo to win this game, even on the road. So I'll start with you, Braden. What are your initial thoughts on this one?
Yeah, these two teams are very boom or bust, I think, week to week, no matter what side of the ball. So I think just in terms of 49ers offense versus Cowboy D, I think this is a matchup where Cowboys are going to be having to make a lot of plays, I think, deep down the field, just because so far this year when we've seen the Cowboys have to kind of face teams that use a lot of motion or a lot of misdirection, they've really been tested a lot more down the field. So whether that's George Kittle or Deebo Samuel, I think this is going to be a tougher game for them out in space compared to what they've had most of the year. But also, I think the trenches battle, I think you look at somebody like Trent Williams, who I think probably the best left tackle this season, and you go up against that defensive end duo right now, which is pretty on fire right now for the most part, in DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory. I think that's going to be a very exciting matchup just to see how Jimmy G kind of handles, what kind of decisions he's going to make. We've seen some really weird interceptions from him this year, so how he handles that matchup is going to be interesting.
It all depends on which Jimmy Garoppolo shows up. You getting the one that had the impressive fourth quarter comeback last week in Los Angeles? Or are you getting the one that a few weeks ago in the second half against Tennessee essentially cost them the game on the road? I'm not entirely sure because that Dallas pass rush can get the job done. And I just think it's kind of weird to say people are underestimating the Cowboys, because when I feel like this match has been talked about all week, more people are like, oh, the Niners. I mean, Dak is still really good. If they can get back to running the football with Elliott and maybe Pollard comes back today and they can maybe get that 1-2 going, that offensive line is still healthy. So that helps them going in. The question to me is coaching. I mean, I look at this matchup, who's going to make the mistake? Is it Shanahan or is it McCarthy? One of them's going to screw up. I just don't know which one it is.
I don't even know who the better odds are of messing up either there, Ricky. You're right. Yeah. But actually, something else you mentioned, like Dak Prescott, right? And a question I was going to ask earlier, but then decided, okay, we won't spend too much time on it. But I'll ask it now: is like, who's the fifth best quarterback in the NFL? Is it Dak Prescott? Is it Joe Burrow? Like, I think there's a reasonable case you can maybe say Josh Allen as well. But yeah, I think if Dak Prescott wants to prove it to him, this might be the game where he has to kind of go and take it and show it and show that he's clearly up in that upper echelon.
Yeah,
Actually, I asked a question. I'll let you answer it. Actually,
I don't know if I'd say he's the fifth best quarterback. I mean, maybe it's just a little recency bias, but I am getting pretty high on Josh Allen. I said coming into this season, I got to see it again. I got to see him repeat. What are we going to get? Is it going to be the first two seasons of Josh Allen, or are we going to get a repeat? And so far, we've gotten a repeat. So to me, I think his stock is rising. That's a good question. I don't know if I have any. I don't think so. I would probably say right now, probably no. But I think he's in a group that could certainly be considered. I think there's a handful of guys there. I think depending on, look, if Joe Burrow has another really good game or leads this Bengals team to a couple more wins, I mean, as crazy as that sounds, it's hard not to sit there and elevate him in such a way that we did Patrick Mahomes. I mean, maybe it doesn't result in a Super Bowl championship, but the tangible stuff is there, the production, the big wins, that type of thing. So I don't know. It's an interesting question. And I think that's something that may kind of play out next year. I mean, again, though, I'm kind of rambling here, and I don't want to take too much longer on the subject, but I do think that he's in the discussion for that, and I do think guys like Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and look, I mean, there's a lot of guys that are in that mix. So yeah, why not? Why not? He's in the discussion. I'll go that far. So
we might need this playoff run to decide, like, get that answer finally.
I believe so. Because look, real quick, and this is. Being the best quarterback isn't all about just having stats or just doing this or just doing that. It's a lot of things you can't measure. So there's showing up in big moments. It's consistently being great at the high pressure moments. It's stuff like that isn't necessarily measured. So again, to you guys' point, if these playoffs continue and move on and you get more big time performances from, that's not where I wanted to go. That's not where I wanted to go either. Okay, I'm all over the place here. If you wanted to get more big time performances and see some more big time performances from these quarterbacks, that's going to carry a lot of weight when it comes to, okay, who are the best quarterbacks in the league? And look, that's one of the reasons why that I am unmovable when it comes to when someone asks me who's the best quarterback in the league. And I've said, well, it's been the same guy for the last decade, and it's Tom Brady. And it's not just because, like, he doesn't lead the league. Obviously, this year he did, but he doesn't lead the league every single season in every stat. no quarterback does. It's just, to me, there's a lot that goes into the position, and I think you're seeing some young guys have opportunities to show what they have, and I think that's going to go a long way into the discussion because, hey, eventually him and Aaron Rodgers are going to have to retire eventually. So there's going to open up the door for a whole new list, but that we'll see. I do like, personally, I like Joe Burrow a little bit more. I like his game style a little bit. I just like, I don't know, I guess the swagger, so to speak. So we'll see how that plays out. But a big game for both of that, or from him yesterday. Maybe we get that from Dak today. How big of an impact is Nick Bosa going to have? Is it, what are we talking about here? Good Cowboys offensive line, not a great one. It's a pretty good one against a somewhat mobile quarterback. Is he going to have an impact in this game? 21 tackles for losses, right up there with TJ Watt for at the top of the league.
Yeah, nice stat pull. But then you see Micah Parsons also up there, which is interesting. But two really high impact defenders, pretty young. I mean, Parsons a rookie. Bosa, this is third year.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he'll undoubtedly have an impact. To be him, the Nick Bosa Tyron Smith battle is going to be definitely an individual matchup to watch for in this game.
Yeah, I think Bosa, where he kind of really shines for me, I think he's actually kind of more of a do-it-all defender than I think people realize, more than just a pass rusher. So I think just playing that kind of contain on the edge and being able to, like Ricky said, if the Dallas Cowboys can get the run game going in this one, I think Bosa's kind of be counted on to make those stops in the backfield, like the stat says, tackle for loss. I think that's kind of an area where I think I'd actually be more interested in seeing how Bosa does compared to the pass rush in this game, especially when I think you have the two-headed monster that Dallas has at running back. So with Bosa, for me, I think it's how does he kind of handle being out in space and kind of what can he do when he has the chances if they come in the backfield.
Yeah, to me, it's balance. If Bosa's going after Dak when it's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, then I think he's going to have more of an opportunity. If it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, I mean, Dak has CeeDee Lamb on a short pass. He can get that ball quick. He can get the ball to Cooper over the middle. He can get the ball to Dalton Schultz over the middle, who's been really good for them this year. I just think there's too many weapons there where the Niners pass rush, Dak's going to get the ball out quick, or he can scramble. So you can do a couple of different things to where I think Bosa will have an okay game. I just don't think he's going to have that huge impact game. I think the difference between him and Parsons is Quinn's going to put Parsons all over the field. And if Williams on the left side, maybe you'll just see more of Micah Parsons on the right side, just wreaking havoc there.
One thing, because I actually didn't give my score prediction, so a couple of
we haven't done any of our score. So
really?
Okay. No, we haven't done it yet.
Sorry. I thought I went right into that quarterback question. My mistake.
No. We're doing that now. So if you have anything else to add before we do that, that's not score prediction wise, let me know, and then we'll jump into that. So you good? All right. So score predictions, guys. I kind of alluded to it earlier. I obviously already know who I was going to pick, although this was a tough decision to make. Ultimately, I'm going to go with the 49ers on the road. I think they're going to do enough to win this one. I do like Nick Bosa to have a pretty good game. And most importantly, I think you're going to get good Jimmy Garoppolo in this game. I think you're going to see a guy that's going to make the throws necessary to win this game. And ultimately, that's what this game hinges on. So I'm going to take the 49ers and then throw it to Braden.
Yeah, I got Cowboys 30-24 in this one. I think this will kind of be a game where I think, like you said, I think we actually will get good Jimmy Garoppolo, but I ultimately think right now Mike McCarthy has been probably the better coach for me personally this year. So I think it's just kind of letting McCarthy kind of run that CEO type and letting Dan Quinn do his magic late, see what kind of stops he's going to try to pull to slow down Deebo Samuel. So I do think it'll be kind of a wild, high-scoring game. I got 30-24 Dallas.
It's like I said earlier, when it seems like the Niners are getting all the love this week, you tend to lean the opposite way because the Niners that trendy upset pick. I'm going to go Dallas 28-23. I think the Cowboys have a chip on their shoulder. I think Dak has a chip on his shoulder. And last 4 games, I know the Eagle game aside because Philly didn't really try, 13 touchdowns, no interceptions for Dak Prescott. The last 2 games, Jimmy Garoppolo, the Titan game and the Ram game, 4 interceptions. If Dallas can get Trayvon Diggs an interception, if Jimmy's going to, Garoppolo is as good as he can be, is going to give it away at some point. Dallas is more likely to turn that turnover into 6 and they are into 3. And because Zerline's been inconsistent, maybe they just go for it. So I think McCarthy doesn't screw this up unless it's the first half and he can't figure out the clock. But I just trust Dak. I trust Prescott more than I trust Garoppolo. It's going to be Dallas 28-23.
Some key interesting numbers from the season. So situational football is always so important, especially near the red zone. Like, you want to be efficient at scoring touchdowns when you're close to the goal line. The 49ers led the league with 63% touchdown efficiency on run plays inside the 5. Dallas had 63% touchdown on passing plays inside the 5. So funny that both teams ended up with the same number. Dallas didn't lead the league with that. I think the Raiders at 70% did, but they also only threw 10 passes inside the 5. So, but to that though, you look at where the defenses line up with that. Dallas has allowed 52% touchdown rate on the ground. So rushing wise, the 49ers do set up well with their strength against the Cowboys' kind of defensive weakness. Or, I mean, I guess they were the Cowboys defense kind of weak all over inside the 5. It's kind of that, like the high condensed areas, seems like they're not getting the stops. So for the Dallas strength of 63% rate for themselves, 49ers have only allowed 20% touchdown rate inside the 5 on passing plays on their own, like defensively. So it tied for the league with the league lead with the Rams in terms of the most efficient defense. So the 49ers offensive strength lines up well of where they can exploit the Dallas defense. And I think Shanahan, the thing is, you can run in so many different ways. And I think the key here is like I can't remember who said it. I think Ricky, you said it. They're gonna Quinn's gonna line up Parsons all over the field. And can the 49ers almost use that to their advantage? Can they confuse Parsons? Can they give him a lot of different looks and not reveal where the run play is going to happen, especially near the goal line when you only have a few yards to make up for that type of distance? Is that going to be enough to fool him, get him out of position, and allow the 49ers to score more in those key areas near the goal line as opposed to the Cowboys? So maybe trusting the goal line grade numbers a little bit, but I'll go with the 49ers upset. I have it at 27-24.
All right, 2 for 2 for us. And look at that. Just like that, game number 3. Sunday Night Football, Pittsburgh. The improbable Pittsburgh Steelers heading to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. In fact, it was their last victory came against this Chiefs team just a few years ago. But this Pittsburgh Steelers team, again, just somehow it was improbable how they got into the playoffs. And then it was almost even more improbable how they almost got eliminated from the playoffs last weekend by virtue of what could have been a tie between the Chargers and the Raiders. However, that was not to be, so the Steelers end up sneaking in and get a chance to potentially get absolutely walloped on Sunday Night Football and Big Ben's last game, because if you're basing it off what we saw just a few weeks ago, 36-10 in favor of the Chiefs, and it really wasn't a game from the start. So it's going to be interesting to see what Pittsburgh does to be able to combat this. I do think that the one way that they can keep themselves in this game for many reasons is if Najee Harris has a big game. I mean, the Chiefs can and are capable of allowing a lot of rushing yards, and they can be vulnerable to that. Not only if you get Najee Harris going, not only do you keep the Steelers on the field and potentially score points, you keep the Kansas City offense off the field. Not that it's a death knell if they get time of possession, because I think Pittsburgh can create some havoc. If TJ Watt has a big game, he can do that. But I think there's a lot of ways this game can go. I think there's very few in which the Steelers come out victorious. So if anyone disagrees, speak now or forever hold your peace, because I think we all agree that this is going to be a pretty relatively easy playoff win for the Chiefs. So I'll throw it down to our resident Chief expert and let him tell me if I'm wrong at all.
Well, I like where you're going with the Najee Harris part, just because last time they did play, Najee's yards per carry was actually higher than Roethlisberger's yards per attempt on the day. So I think if you look at the Chiefs defense, you're kind of right in terms of where they can get beat. I think it's missed tackling. I think it's, of course, missing plays out in space and not getting in their run fits. So that's kind of where I would definitely agree with you. I think Najee Harris, if there's anything that scares me from the passing game, although we don't know how much he'll play, Juju Smith-Schuster being back somehow off IR now is really interesting. A fun wrinkle to this game, given that the Chiefs tried to get him in free agency and it didn't work out. So maybe he's auditioning at Arrowhead for next year this game, but we'll see. I think defensively, I think the cornerbacks and I think the secondary, this is kind of where if there's any area as a Chiefs fan or anything out there for Kansas City, I think I'd be worried a little bit just because I think Charvarius Ward under pressure lately, not as good as he was middle of the year. And I think there's a lot that miscommunication-wise, we're seeing more in the secondary than we have any other year that Tyrann Mathieu kind of been in Kansas City. So defensively, I think if you're able to kind of get home, of course, Roethlisberger not breaking as many tackles as he used to. I think if that Spagnuolo pressure kind of heats up like we know it can, I think that's where this game starts to get unwatchable, maybe like last night's did.
The problem for the Steelers is I don't know when's the last game they put 4 consistent quarters of offense together. Like they can have a good second half or one half where Ben can get on a roll and find Claypool and find Johnson and maybe Juju gets in the mix. But they never just get a complete game. Like I was even looking through their games. The Minnesota game, they were great in the second half. The Charger game, they scored 27 points in the fourth quarter. And to beat the Chiefs, you have to score, I feel like in every quarter, at least a touchdown or two. And I don't think this offense can do that. They put a lot on Ben's arm this year. I don't know how many throws he has left. He was like top 10 in attempts this year, which is not the formula to have for an aging quarterback. Even with Clyde Edwards-Helaire out, the Chiefs also should be able to run the football with Darrell Williams. And you got to consider this team put up 36 points with Travis Kelce out and Tyreek Hill coming off of COVID and really didn't have anything. What are they going to put up with both of them healthy? I think the Sunday night audience will find out.
I would say that the Chiefs are maybe also a victim of not playing consistent 4 quarters on offense. Like they go through their struggles at times, but they could also put 5 touchdowns up in a quarter in the blink of an eye. And like the Steelers really don't have that capacity. So even if the Chiefs don't play a consistently efficient offense all 4 quarters, what they could do with maybe 3 or even 2.5 quarters of really efficient offense is probably too much for the Steelers to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I stand on all this. I mean, there's only so much extra oomph you get from, this could be Ben Roethlisberger's last game and all this, that, and the other. The Steelers just lack the talent. I mean, they're going to get Juju Smith-Schuster back, which is nice. I mean, obviously, it's better than not having him out there. But ultimately, to you guys' point, they need to play a perfect 4 quarters. They can't just have a quiet second quarter and rely on their offense to make it up like the Chiefs can. They have to play great, and they have to play great defensively. I mean, look, you have to slow this Chiefs defense down, and I really think it lands on this defensive line. Can you disrupt what they do offensively? If you can disrupt and get him off his rhythm, all of a sudden all bets are off, and maybe you get a little bit more of an effort put forth, and maybe just maybe an upset, but I don't think that's the case because look, I got the Chiefs winning this one, setting up what we anticipate to be a matchup, obviously, with the Bills. So to me, I think the Chiefs win this one. I do think Pittsburgh keeps it a little bit close. I don't think it's going to be 36-10, but I do like the Chiefs winning this game, something like 31-21.
I kind of wanted to make this prediction a little bit closer than last time, but I just don't see the Steelers getting in the end zone that much. So I went 34-16. I think this will kind of be a game where you're gonna, I think, see a lot more running than maybe what we're used to seeing from these recent Chiefs playoff runs, whether it's Darrell Williams, Jerick McKinnon, or Derek Gore. But given that the Steelers have been, I think, bottom 5 rush defense most of the year, I think they're going to be just fine doing that today. So I have 34-16 Chiefs.
I'm going to go 31-17 Chiefs in this game. I just think the issue here for Pittsburgh, and I think what you like out of this game, at least from an entertainment perspective, Mike Tomlin will probably go for it more often than not on 4th down. And I think he's kind of the wild card here because I'm sure he's got some tricks up his sleeve he can go with, and he's a guy that I think has had is one of his best coaching jobs of his career. And also Pat Frymuth, they can play a big factor because if they're going to make those 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 4s move the chains, it's more likely he's going to make those catches over the middle, kind of that future at the tight end position that Pittsburgh hopes. So I think they can hang around for like 25 minutes. But in the end, I think the Chiefs just have one quick onslaught, and it's enough to get it done.
It's probably one of those, Ricky, where like the Chiefs score before and after halftime, and then like you coming out to the 3rd quarter, like Ben has it at the end of the 2nd, and then suddenly it's like a 14-point deficit more than what he had it last time he touched the ball coming into the 3rd kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And also to throw it on there, Harrison Butker's back. They'd have their kicker today. So the Chiefs just that's a big factor too. You don't have to worry about your kicking game in this January weather.
They won't necessarily be the team that goes for it on fourth down because they feel like they don't have a choice, right? They can kind of be comfortable, play their offense, and if they take field goals, just keep accumulating them, right? Like they're not going to feel too stressed or pressured.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got the Steelers as the worst offense left, and let's see, the Patriots scored 17 last night, so the Steelers can't score more than 16 by that measure, right? I've got a 33-16, which 3 scores I think is enough to cover that spread as well. So not only would I go with the Chiefs outright, I'd take with their I don't know, I haven't seen the updated spreads today, but last time I checked, I think it was 12.5.
Right.
I'd take that. I'd take that.
It's still, which is shocking. I thought with the Juju news that line would go down a little bit.
Yeah, really. But I guess enough people are yeah. So I'd take that spread personally, but that's me.
All right, so we're all taking the Chiefs. Surprise, surprise. Okay, so obviously that does it for the 3 Sunday games. However, we do have one Monday night game coming up, and it's the Rams hosting the Cardinals. And this takes me back to when the Rams first acquired Odell Beckham Jr. and a graphic was put out. How do you stop this Rams offense? Well, you know what my answer was? Matt Stafford reception in crunch time. And I just can't stop thinking about the tweet because, well, one, I want to be right because I like being right. But 2, I can't help but feel like I am going to be right. And this game is just going to we've seen it the last few weeks. He's been getting interception happy. He's looking a lot more like the Lion version of Matt Stafford, where it's like his boom is but his bust is bust, like big time bust. So you're going to see a team that the Cardinals have had their own struggles down the stretch. They're not certainly perfect in any sense, but I look at this game and I'm like, you know what, this is going to be close. It's going to come down to down the stretch, but I honestly think Kyler Murray is going to outplay Matt Stafford at the end of the day, and that's my initial instinct. And as good as guys like Aaron Donald are and Jalen Ramsey are, I don't think it's going to be enough because at the end of the day, like I said, my gut tells me there's going to be a big interception down the stretch in a very, very important situation that it's not going to work out for the Rams. So are you feeling the same way, Braden, or is it just me?
Yeah, I don't know. This is 2 teams I really don't know if I can trust to make a full run. I think just hearing that Eric Weddle's back in the league is really weird against this quarterback for this first round matchup. So I don't know. It's really weird. I think I actually trust the Cardinals defense more at this point based off how the Cardinals offense ended the season. James Conner, I think, could kind of be the wild card, but this was a Cardinals offense that EPA was bottom half of the league in the last, I think, 6-7 weeks. So I don't know. I think this is one of those games where I think it's just going to kind of be what kind of coach is more aggressive. And to me, I think McVay's proven, in the playoffs that he can kind of start hot out of the gate. I don't know. I don't trust a lot of these teams or both these teams here. I think ultimately, I think the Rams formula is a little bit more proven, and I think the Cardinals may just kind of be the Cardinals that we're used to seeing these last couple of years late in the season. So I do have it as a 3-point game. I think 24-21 Rams. I don't know. I think this is kind of one of those games where Matt Stafford, we're going to get a good Matt Stafford today before he goes probably to Green Bay next week.
Yeah, I don't trust Matt Stafford at all. And I don't go off the 0-3 in playoff games. That's not fair to him because I think 2 of those times he was the heavy underdog, and the other time was the Dallas game, which playing on a call here or there, maybe he gets a win. But you got to go off the last few weeks. Matthew Stafford in the last few weeks has last 4 games, 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That's not going to get it done. And you look at the Rams over the last month. They struggled with Seattle in a game where the Seahawks really just made dumb decisions, and there was a controversial non-pass interference. You had the Viking game with 3 picks by Stafford. They somehow found a way to win. You had the Raven game they had to score in the final minute to win. And then you had last week where they had that game in their back pocket and lost the game in overtime, albeit the Cardinals, to their own demise, allowed Rashad Penny to run for almost 200 yards in a game they needed to win the division. So I don't really know who to trust in this situation. Both these teams are fading. The one thing you look at, I think the Rams need Sony Michel to run the football. Last week, Michel ran it for 49, was it 39 or 49 yards on 20 carries? That's not going to get it done at all. But this Cardinal team is great on the road. I mean, think about it. If they don't lose to the Lions, they're 9-0 on the road this year. So they tend to play better away from Arizona than they do at home. This is a Ram team that you already have Matt Stafford's wife come out and be like, yeah, we need our home fans. We need people to come to the game. And you wonder if that's in their head a little bit too. I don't think the Cardinals will travel. I don't know who to trust. McVay could do some crazy things, but Kingsbury could do some crazy things. It's a matter of who doesn't screw it up. Kind of like the Sunday middle game today.
So I already hinted at it earlier, right? Like the Rams, their goal line passing defense is tied for the best of the league. 20% of throws inside their own 5-yard line have resulted in a touchdown. So situationally, they're great. But you also think of where the strength of this Cardinals offense lies is running the football. Braden said James Conner's the wild card. Like I think wild card, especially on wild card weekend, we're not sure if he's playing yet. And I think if they don't have James Conner, that severely limits their offense in the one way that they could maybe best exploit against the Rams. The kind of the maybe the weakness is running up the middle against them. And without James Conner, I think that severely limits their ability to do so, because I don't think Chase Edmonds quite cut. I mean, different skill sets from Conner. They both do different things, but like for that specific skill set, you know, the vision inside the tackles running, I don't think Edmonds has that. Not nearly the same extent of James Conner. I mean, heck, Kenyon Drake was there last year and looked like he was the better version of that. So I think it's a fairly steep downgrade at that one area. Maybe not necessarily as a player as a whole, but that one skill set area where I think that the Cardinals could eke out the win. And I don't know, coaching wise, as much as you said it, Keeler, McVay can kind of do some crazy things, but I think I trust him infinitely more than Cliff Kingsbury. I think that's where it comes down to. I think his coaching. McVay's coached a team to the Super Bowl 4. Yeah, he has some questionable things at times, but for the most part, he knows how to win playoff games. This will be Cliff Kingsbury's first ever playoff game, and I don't even really count college stuff, but I don't think he ever had much success in college either. Maybe a bowl game here or there, but I wouldn't count it anyway. But I just think the moment might be too big for Kingsbury coaching. So. Sorry, did we give our scores yet again? I'm not paying attention apparently.
No, don't worry. I got you. I got
the numbers. I just want
to. I'm here to direct. I'm here to guide things in a way that keeps the flow going, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. Because as I alluded to earlier, I think ultimately this game is going to be close. I'm with you when it comes to who do I trust. Well, it's not a matter of they're both trustworthy coaches. No, I'm not as big on Sean McVay as a lot of people are. Same with Cliff Kingsbury. I think, I think we'll see what happens long term, and we'll judge them based on that. But right now, I'm with you. Either one of them, I would believe, could make a bad coaching decision that could cost this team, their team, a game. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be Matt Stafford. Ricky said it best: 8-8. 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions the last few weeks of the season. It just hasn't been great, Matt Stafford. And I don't think you're going to get it here today, because I think the pressure is going to be on. And I think at the end of the day, he's going to throw a pick. So this team's going to end up losing to the Cardinals. And I got 34. A lot of points scored in this game. I like a lot of points in this game. 34-28.
Yeah, I got 24-21 Rams. I think this will be one of those games where there's a lot of turnovers, and especially on the Stafford side, I think maybe could be one of those where you just I think you can see a lot of tipped balls in this game. So 24-21 Rams, though, I think ultimately going to come up to their defense at the end of this game.
I'm going to go 30-24 Arizona here. I think it's just because I think I like the Cardinals on the road. I think the Rams are playing with a lot of pressure, being at home, knowing it's Super Bowl or bust. Cooper Kupp's going to get his, but really, can the Cardinals take Beckham out of the game? Can they take Jefferson out of the game? Can they make it to where Stafford only can go to one player and force some mistakes? And it's a good point Kyle brought up on Connor, but also you look at Chase Edmonds. Chase Edmonds didn't play in the last matchup in December. And in the first game they played in LA this year, Edmonds ran 12 times for 120 yards. So I think maybe he could be a difference maker here. I just don't think the Rams, unless they can get Tony Michel more involved, can win this game one-dimensional. They're going to have to provide some balance. I think Arizona can either provide balance with Edmonds, or if Connor plays, or with Kyler's legs. I think maybe if Murray runs the ball a little bit more, and he had 60 yards the last matchup, he could kind of provide that factor. No pressure for Kyler Murray. If he loses, nobody's going to really look at him bad for this game. So I think he can play a little more loose, make a little bit more plays. So I think Arizona on the road, considering how great of a road team they've been, will get this done.
And yeah, I'm gonna just to get follow up onto the coaching. I think the Rams get it done by the extreme end of one score, but I have it at 25-17 for the Rams.
Well, there we go. We're actually nice and split. So, yeah, obviously that game takes place tomorrow. So, but those first 3 games we talked about, obviously today. So, thank you everyone for tuning in for yet another FPC NFL Sunday. We'll be back next weekend for divisional round weekend and every weekend thereafter, as long as we have football, and that's only just a few more weeks. Save for the Pro Bowl. We're not going to do anything for the Pro Bowl. Who cares about that? But we do want to say thank you very much for tuning in today, and be sure to tune in, obviously, next Sunday, but of course, all this week for FBC Radio Live as we break down, and keep an eye out for the other great content coming from fullpresscoverage.com. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy your Sunday, and